This week's reading is from Rays of the One Light, Weekly Commentaries on the Bible and Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. Deeds versus intentions. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Jesus Christ emphasized repeatedly the spirit, not the letter of the law. In chapter 5 of the Gospel of St. Matthew, he speaks of the sin of killing and of the legal punishment attendant on that sin, but says that more important than the act is the desire to kill or to do harm. He shows that the sin of harmful desire goes beyond merely wanting to kill. My message to you, he said, is this: whoever is angry with his brother without cause already stands condemned. Whoever contemptuously calls his brother a fool shall answer for it to the Supreme Council. And whoever calls his brother an outcast of God shall be in danger of hellfire. Brother here means any other human being. For all of us, in the highest sense, are brothers and sisters, children of our one Father, Mother, God. The true self of one is the self of all. To hurt another, even if one doesn't realize it, is to hurt oneself. Swami Kriyananda, in The Path, recalls an episode in which the Master, Paramahansa Yogananda, revealed his sense of identity even with the plants. One day, Kriyananda wrote, we were moving a delicate but rather heavy tropical plant into position on the hillside. Our handling, evidently, was too rough, for Master cried out, "Be careful what you are doing. Can't you feel it's alive?" To wish death to anyone, to wish even harm to another creature, is to deny in oneself the reality that divine life, which all of us are manifestations. It is, in short, to deny the eternal truth proclaimed by the Bhagavad Gita in the 2nd chapter. This self is never born, nor does it perish. Once existing, it cannot ever cease to be. It is birthless, eternal, changeless, ever itself. It is not slain when the body is slain. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind.
I'm sure that for each one of you who walked through these doors this morning, your intention was to renew your sense of connection with the spiritual life. This is why we gather on Sunday mornings, to celebrate the intention of our heart to seek God, to once again renew that dedication we've felt at many points along the way, to renew that connection. And how is it that it goes so differently than we expected? How is it that within a week's time we've been filled with a lot of forgetfulness about our deepest intentions? Well, it's the nature of the game, and we have to work really, really hard at it in order that our deeds reflect those deeper intentions. And where does that misalignment come from? It comes from deep within each of us. So it's really us responding to the world in ways that we thought were just perfectly fine, like me first. We thought that seemed pretty reasonable. And yet it did not bring us happiness. And so each time we come again, we try something else out, and somehow it doesn't quite make it. And so eventually we realize we just want to be free of it. We just want to be free of ourselves. We want to not be so interested in ourselves. And there's the story of a man who died, and he found himself in a very beautiful place. And he was surrounded by every conceivable comfort that there was. And an attendant came to him and said, "Welcome, sir. You may have any food, any experience, any pleasure that you desire. Just ask me, and I will provide it for you." And so the man thought, wow, this is great. I didn't know it was going to be just like this, but this is to my liking. And he just indulged in everything that he wanted. And eventually, he got bored. It was the same old good food, the same old paltry pleasures. And he called the man to him and he said, "I want to do something. I want something to do. This is all getting too tiresome." And the attendant said to him, "I'm sorry, sir. There's nothing that we can give you to do. This is it." And the man replied, "Well, this is a fine thing. I might as well be in hell." And the attendant said to him, "Where do you think you are?" And that's the way it is with us. We create our own darkness because we don't know how to make those intentions clearly manifested, how to take that response in the heart and put it out there, bypassing ourselves. And that takes a lot of time to learn how to do that, how to realize that in the journey of finding happiness, we find it when we lose ourselves. We find it when our concern is for others. And why is that so? I mean, metaphysically, it seems like we are separate people, and so we need to take care. Well, of course, we live on many different levels. And yes, we do have to take responsibilities and take care of ourselves on the physical level. But we don't need to make it the focus of our lives. We need to see that each one of us is exactly the same, that we are one another, that whatever we do that has a negative effect on somebody else, it hurts us. And so that's why Christ talks about what you intend, how you think. You can, in the physical world, you can hide your thoughts to some degree. In the next plane that we arrive at when we pass off this body, that's not so easy to do. And so we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared for becoming transparent and guarding our thoughts and recognizing that we're on a pathway of learning. We will make mistakes. We will need to ask forgiveness. But always keep in mind that we are each other, and how we treat each other is significant. When we stay enclosed within ourselves, then we take part in this game that can go on for a long, long time, which is judging others. And we spend a lot of our mental time doing that. And that is what the lesson talks about this morning. Letting go of that, because the truth is, judging others keeps us separate. It keeps us in the reality that we are separate. It affirms the material dimension of our lives, and we know full well that that is only one part of it. That the dimension that will bring us freedom is the spiritual dimension. That dimension that has to do with our thoughts and our hearts. And when we judge, we're aligning ourselves with the critical mind. And the critical mind cannot make connections. And we desperately need to and want to make connections. We want to make connections with one another, to share our journey together, to help one another on that journey. And we want to be able to share with God. Yogananda said, unless we can bring forth the love of another human being, we're not going to know how to get in tune with God, how to get in connection with God. So all of us share that need to make those connections with one another in order to practice for making the connections with God. And we do it all together, all at once. And on Sunday morning, it's a wonderful opportunity to just drop out of yourself and drop into the communal spirit and connect with all of us connecting to God. That's what makes the vibration in here so high and beautiful, because we're remembering, not forgetting. There's a story of a monastery where the population was pretty much depleted. They were used to be very full and dynamic, but now it was down to 3 monks, and they weren't getting along so well. And so the bishop heard of this, heard of their troubles, realized that he would like a booming monastery instead of one that was fading, and so he came out to assess the situation. And he saw that these gentlemen were getting into some bad habits of judging one another. And he spent about 3 or 4 days with them in their practices and in their prayers. And he called them all together at the end of his visit, and he said, "I truly believe that one of you is the Messiah." And then he got into his boat and he left. Yeah, I love that smile. She got it. Boom! So how about we practice that? So the monks said, "Oh my gosh, well, it couldn't be me, but maybe it could be that one." And each of them, well, maybe that one and maybe the other. And so this thought just kept going round and round, and it began to change their behavior toward one another. And the vibration of the monastery became stronger and uplifted. And suddenly young men in the neighborhood began to be interested. They joined, and it became a dynamic place once again. That's a wonderful metaphor for us, because it's so. I mean, I've said this many times, but at Ananda Village in the early years, the monks and nuns who were trying that aspect of the experiment to connect with God developed something called the Future Saints Club of America. And they all felt themselves ready to join that, or getting ready to join that. It was so sweet the other day in the Circle of Joy, which I do at East West. We've been studying for the last 2 months Swami Kriyananda's 26 Keys for Higher Awareness. It's a little pamphlet. I don't know whether it's still published and whether we can get it, but maybe we can. It's lovely. So I photocopied it and cut it up, and we've had little slips of paper in a basket, and each time we pass it around and talk about the significance of each little saying. And what evolved this past Friday was people just wanted so much to talk about what it is they would do in their practice to remind them to stay mindful. And so we shared ways in which we did our meditation and we did our prayer, and ways in which we tricked ourselves to stay mindful. It's a wonderful thing to do. And also in our study groups on Tuesday, we talked about what are the ways in which we keep our meditation practice fresh. And we shared in that way. And this is what we all need to do. Think of ways to trick ourselves into paying attention and staying with it. And someone said, the sweetest thing, they said, well, what I do to keep my attention focused is sometimes when I pray to the masters, I mix them all up. I don't say them in the usual way in which we say it, in the line we say it. They say it differently. I love that. That's just perfect. And it's important that we make our meditation practice personal to us, something that captures our attention. I think the other quality, besides patience, it's a wonderful reading on patience. I almost want to read it again. But the other quality that's so very important is when we're in the critical mind, we keep ourselves at a really fast pace. We think there's so much about the world in front of us and what's potentially going to happen to us and what people are going to say. We keep ourselves sort of alert. But when we can move into the heart and achieve a certain level of calmness, that is when we are given a totally different perspective about what's going on. If we can get out of the mind and move to the heart, and you can feel that, there's a wonderful gauge of that movement, and it's the voice. Swami Kriyananda said, listen to your voice, and you can tell when you're in the head or in the heart. And with your practice of breathing and connecting the chakras, that can begin to have a particular resonance which becomes reflected in the voice. So you can bring yourself back from that judgmental mind by breathing and feeling your energy drop into the heart. And then your perspective about who everyone is around you becomes very, very different. You begin to see that we're all brothers and sisters, that we're all striving. And I remember in the later years, as Swami got older and older and more devotional aspect of his being was being expressed, he just made the statement, I just love everybody. And I thought, what a wonderful goal. And how is that possible? Well, it's possible when we feel that love from God. When we feel and are aware of the potential of our own divinity, and therefore recognize that that potential is in each one of us, that's how we love them. Because, hey, they're doing the same thing. They're walking the same path. They're desperately wanting to be free, and there they go again yelling at us, and there we go again yelling at them. Gosh, I thought I wanted to be free. What do I do next? And then we keep it going. We keep making those mistakes because that's how we learn. And if we can stay in the heart and stay calm, we may be able to begin to understand why people say what they do, how they treat us. Because it's really not what others say. It's how we respond to what others say. It's what it means to us when someone's making a sharp remark. It's our universe that's being affected, and therefore it's our inner universe that needs to be corrected. So it's always an inner game. It's really, really interesting to reflect on that. And Master said, he didn't come. You know, we wonder why it's so challenging and so difficult. We wonder why we haven't learned certain lessons which we thought we'd learned. Well, the chakras hold a lot of energy, and they need to be cleared out from many, many lifetimes of striving. And so they erupt. That energy erupts, and then suddenly there's something in front of us that we thought we knew all about, and yet we hadn't yet conquered our response to it. And so Master said, I've come not to clean up the mud puddle. In other words, not to make it easier for you, but to get you out of it. To get you out of it. And so how do we walk around in a world that we're out of? Well, we're in it, but we're not of it. We're in it, but we know where we're going. We're in it, but we're not going to take part in so much of it in the way that I must have. I've got to have this. I want that. I want the other. We're going to take part in it for the joy. We're going to take part in it for the expressiveness. We're going to take part in it for the beauty. But everything that we do, we bring back inside and say, God, this was a lovely conversation I had with that woman. Master, this is a wonderful sunset. Thank you. And always referring it inwardly. Yesterday at the Living Wisdom School auction, the treat at the very end of the afternoon was a magic show. And Fred Turner came to do the magic show. And we've seen him before here years ago, and it's always such a delight. He's a very charming man, and he's a professional magic maker. So he knows how to do these things. And he aimed the show toward children, which delighted all of us, of course. And what you see in a magic show is sleight of hand. And that's what we see here. It's all sleight of hand. It's a magic show. Something else is going on besides what we think is going on. Thank you.
Let's listen to these words from Whispers from Eternity that Jamana chose. Prayer at dawn. With the opening of the earliest dawn and the lotus buds, my soul softly opens in prayer to receive thy light. Bathe each petal of my mind with thy radiant rays. I saturate myself with the perfume of thy presence, and I wait to waft with the breeze the aroma of thy message of love to all. Bless me that with the spreading dawn I may spread thy love everywhere. Bless me that with the awakening dawn I may awaken all souls with my own and bring them to thee. Let's meditate now.